There will come a day when you will remember an ordinary afternoon and realize it was never ordinary. It was the last time, the last conversation, the last smile, the last drive home together, the last meal at the same table, the last hug you never knew would be the last. Life rarely announces its endings. It simply lets you live them without warning. No message appears, no voice whispers, "Pay attention, this moment will never return." So you leave in a hurry. You say, "I'll call tomorrow. We'll meet next week. I'll visit when life becomes less busy. There will be another Eid, another Ramadan, another chance." And then, one day, there isn't. Someone's chair remains empty. Their phone never rings again. Their voice becomes a memory instead of a sound. And suddenly, you would give everything just to experience one more completely ordinary day with them. One more cup of tea. One more conversation after Maghrib. One more ride in the same car. One more chance to say, "I love you. Forgive me. Make dua for me." But Allah never promised that ordinary moments would repeat forever. Perhaps that is why the Quran reminds us that every soul shall taste death, not to frighten us, but to wake us up before life quietly passes one ordinary day at a time. Think about your mother. Maybe she is in the next room. Maybe she calls your name every day. Maybe you answer quickly without looking up because you assume there will always be another conversation, until one day people begin talking about her instead of talking to her. Think about your father, the person whose footsteps filled your childhood. One day, those footsteps will stop, not because love ended, because life did. Think about the friend you haven't replied to, the relative you keep meaning to visit, the brother you assumed would always be there. How many relationships are living on borrowed time while we behave as if they belong to us forever? Nothing in this dunya was ever promised forever, except the meeting with Allah. We spend so much of life planning for years while forgetting that Allah only guaranteed us this moment, not tomorrow, not next month, this breath, this heartbeat, this opportunity. Perhaps the greatest tragedy is not death itself. The greatest tragedy is discovering after someone is gone how many beautiful things you kept postponing. Gratitude, kindness, forgiveness, a sincere hug, a longer sajda, a visit to your parents, a phone call, a simple Jazakallahu khairan, a quiet "I'm sorry," or one sincere "I love you for the sake of Allah." The Prophet ﷺ reminded us to remember often the destroyer of pleasures, death, not because Islam wants believers to become hopeless, but because remembering death teaches you how to truly value life. When death disappears from your thoughts, gratitude disappears with it. You stop seeing blessings because you assume they will always remain. But when you remember that every meeting could be the last, your heart begins to soften. You become slower to argue, quicker to forgive, more grateful for small moments, more patient with the people Allah placed beside you. Maybe the last prayer you rushed through was a prayer that someone else would give anything to pray again. Maybe the Quran gathering you almost skipped will never return.
Maybe the ordinary Friday you barely noticed was quietly becoming one of the greatest blessings you never appreciated. Life is not only made of big moments. Most of life is made of ordinary moments that only become extraordinary after they are gone. So before another ordinary day disappears forever, slow down, call your mother, visit your father, forgive your brother, reply to that message, pray without rushing, thank Allah before you lose what you forgot was always a gift. Because one day you will remember an afternoon that seemed completely ordinary, and you will realize it was Allah's gift. You simply did not know you were opening it for the last time.
There is something almost everyone has done. You walked out of your home without looking back. Not because you were angry, not because you did not care, simply because you believed you would return. Most goodbyes are spoken with the confidence that another greeting is coming. See you tonight. Take care. I'll call you later. See you next week. How many of those words have already become someone's final sentence, not because they planned it, because only Allah knew it was the last time? There are people who still remember the last message they never answered. They thought, I'll reply after work. I'll answer tomorrow. Tomorrow came. The reply never did. Not because they forgot, because Allah had already written the final page. How many regrets begin with the word, I thought. I thought there would be more time. We often fear losing people, but we rarely fear wasting the time while we still have them. That may be the greater loss, because grief cannot always be prevented, but neglect often can. Perhaps this is why gratitude is not simply saying Alhamdulillah. Real gratitude changes the way you treat what Allah has entrusted to you. If you are grateful for your parents, you spend time with them. If you are grateful for your spouse, you speak gently. If you are grateful for your children, you put the phone down when they ask you to play. If you are grateful for your friends, you remember them before their funeral. Otherwise, our gratitude remains only words. There is another reality we rarely think about. One day, someone will remember their last conversation with you. Your voice will also become a memory. Your chair will also become empty. People will one day say, he used to sit here. She always smiled when she walked in. Do you remember the way they laughed? Have you ever wondered what your last words might be to someone? Would they carry kindness or anger? Would they remember that you forgave them or that you never did? None of us knows which conversation will become our final one. The Prophet ﷺ said, be in this world as though you were a stranger or a traveler. A traveler does not become attached to every place he passes. He appreciates it. He thanks Allah for it. But he knows he was never meant to remain there forever. Dunya is exactly that, a temporary stop, not a permanent home. Yet we decorate temporary things and neglect our eternal destination. One day, your home will belong to someone else. Your clothes will be folded by different hands. Your favorite chair will be occupied by another person. Your name will slowly disappear from everyday conversations. Life moves forward. It always has. That is not cruelty. That is Allah's design. The world keeps turning, generation after generation, until every one of us returns to Him. So, perhaps the question is not, who will leave me? Everyone eventually will, or you will leave them. The real question is, when that final goodbye comes, what will remain? Will there be unresolved anger, pride, years without speaking, words that were never said? Or will there be dua, charity, love, forgiveness, and beautiful memories that continue even after death. Because some relationships do not end at the grave. A righteous child still makes dua. A friend still asks Allah to forgive you. Someone still gives charity in your name. A smile you gave years ago still lives inside another heart. Not everything dies with the body. Some deeds continue walking long after we are gone. Perhaps that is why Allah did not tell us when the last meeting we come, because if He had, we might have only valued the final embrace. Instead, He asks us to value every embrace, every ordinary meal, every phone call, every visit, every prayer we still have the strength to pray, every person He has not yet taken back. And so, tonight, before you sleep, thank Allah for the people who are still in your life. Call someone without needing a reason. Forgive someone before time makes the decision for you. Sit with your parents a little longer. Hold your child a little tighter. Pray as though it could be the last salah you ever perform. Not out of fear, but out of love. Because every blessing is temporary, except one. The mercy of Allah for the one who returns to Him. And when your own last goodbye finally arrives, may the people you leave behind miss your kindness more than your presence. And may Allah allow your final meeting in this world to become the greatest meeting in the hereafter.